Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of the PowettPlay podcast. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Kieran Powell. How are you, Kai?
I'm good, Jordan. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you very much. Yeah, and the nights are drawing in the UK at the minute. The clocks go back at the weekend, so it'll be dark mornings, dark nights, and the wonderful winter is on the horizon. But nothing much to, I can't complain too much, so all good.
Yeah, I'm struggling with terrible summer days out here in the Caribbean as well. So lots to complain about.
No, and well, like you mentioned before about obviously the humidity and the temperature stuff over there, and I'm trying to sympathise with you, but rolling out of bed at 6 a.m. and you're shivering and stuff. It's there's not much sympathy on my side. I'll be honest with you on that.
There you go.
So obviously the Super 50's well underway at the minute, and there's been some really, really good performances, and none stand out more than your superb innings last week. Was it always in the, did you always want to be aggressive, or what made you think, I'm going to come out here and look to put the pressure on the bowler sort of thing?
So I mean, in an ideal world, I'd prefer to bat like that most times than not. But
Right.
Obviously, being the most senior batter in my team, it requires me to curtail my preferred style of play most often than not. But
Yeah.
I mean, given the total that Jamaica set, 128, I'm 123, sorry.
Yeah.
It's sort of one of those tricky totals where if you try and stick about and you can sort of fall into a rut and you lose a couple of early wickets, then things can really go awry really quickly. So I just decided, let me have a crack at one of these bowlers and see what happens. And then I said, all right, the other guy, I think I can take him down as well. So let me just try and see how much I can get off of them. And then there's things just went my way, and I just continue to go with it.
No, fantastic. Because I watched the first innings, and obviously with the time difference and stuff, it's not easy to always follow. And I thought it looked like it was a lot in the wicket, to be honest with you. I thought Bonner looked in really good order. And I thought, he looked like he was going to, get a score. And then when, obviously you bowl fantastically well and as a team and stuff, especially, what's his surname? Daniel. Yeah, obviously a superb spell of bowling. But I did also think, though, that it would be a tricky one to sort of get, to be honest. But then when I woke up to the messages off his, with Emma and stuff, I'm thinking, wow, that is one hell of a way to go and chase that total.
Yeah, it was a bit of a tricky pitch. Like it's very, very tacky, especially when Jamaica batted. There's a lot of moisture in it. Surprisingly, with the 1 o'clock start, and as I said, with the heat that we've been experiencing in the Caribbean, so that was very surprising. Having said that, I don't think that Jamaica necessarily batted the best either. I don't think that they gave themselves a chance, because everyone pretty much more or less came out in an attacking manner, as opposed to looking to stick it out and just growing to a respectable fighting score and give themselves a chance. Because as I said, even 123, if we went about it any differently, could have been a bogeyman type of score. So I mean, something like a 180, 200 on that pitch, especially going into the night, the twilight transition, the ball doing a bit, and just the confidence of knowing that you had a bit more runs to defend, a bit more runs on the board, obviously would give the team a bit more confidence. Whereas, I mean, I got going, scores 93 at the end of the power play, game's effectively over, so guys are just going through the motions at that point. So it's just understanding the finer intricacies of I was just kind of crazy about that. Just the finer intricacies of the game.
Yeah, it does. As a batter, when you sort of get one of those sort of sticky sort of wickets, is the temptation to be a bit more proactive and aggressive to sort of take out that element of risk of the track a little bit, or do you try and put that outside of your mindset and just sort of concentrate on what your game plan is going into the game, regardless of the track?
Well, I think your game plan has to adapt based on the track. So I mean, it's sort of a twofold answer because I'd say if you're batting first, obviously you have to try and set it up and take it deep so that the guys at the end, hopefully the pitch gets somewhat better and the guys at the end can maximize from the guys up front doing the hard yards.
Yeah.
Said that if you're chasing the total, you want to get off to as quick a start as possible and sort of calm the nerves of the dressing room and let the guys know that, you know, the pitch isn't as bad as it looked.
Yeah.
Sort of an hour, 2 hours, but how many of hours in advance. So it just depends on obviously winning the toss or losing the toss, and then obviously how you try and set the game up.
Yeah. And predominantly, what are the wickets like in Trinidad?
Trinidad has actually been, I'd say it used to be Antigua, but Trinidad's my favorite place in the Caribbean to bat. Look, the pitches here are generally very good. The outfields here are generally very good as well. And I mean, this is the home of Brian Lara, so they have to be good batting pitchers in Trinidad to produce something that special.
No, good. And I think obviously as a team as well, you're top of the table, I think at the minute when I last checked. So obviously from that perspective, it must be really positive to see yourself out, and be top of the tails so far.
Yeah, I mean, even with the loss yesterday, there's still positives to take away. I think having looked at our bowling attack now over the course of 3 games, I think that we have a very strong bowling unit. We had someone like a Kofi James, for example, I think the second leading wicket taker in the tournament last year, that just bowled his first over in the tournament in our game yesterday. Yeah. I mean, you've got Daniel Durham, who's leading wicket taker in the tournament thus far, who only bowled 3 overs yesterday. So we've got a plethora of options at our disposal, and it's just unleashing them as and when to the different types of batters that come to the crease or whatever respective plan that we have on the given day for the opponent. So we're in a good space mentally. It's just for us as a team to put up good scores on the board or chase whatever scores our bowling is limited to, but we back our bowling to keep us in the game 9 out of 10.
Yeah, no, it's been I've really enjoyed watching it. There's been some really good games, some good standout performances and things as well. So I'm really looking forward to watching the rest of the series sort of unfold. And I think there's going to be some really close games over the next round of fixtures and stuff as well. So I'm looking forward to keeping an eye on that. In terms of the World Cup, have you managed to keep an eye on that with things going things going on? Are you playing cricket and stuff?
Yeah, it's actually Emma says all she's doing in here is cricket. You'd swear that she's married to a cricketer. But no, it's I actually sleep with the TV on the cricket channel because it starts pretty early here in the morning. Yeah, of course. Yeah. It starts like maybe 4:30 at morning, so it's like sort of glimpse at it like in the last bits of sleep coming into morning, and then obviously wake up and see the rest of the matches going on. So we've been keeping track of the World Cup, and it's been very interesting. For example, someone like a team like Afghanistan pulling 2 wins out of the bag, they are now going into the upper half of the points table. Australia sort of rebounding from a bad start. England sort of not really kicking off the World Cup, like they haven't gotten off the ground at any point in time. So it's been an interesting tournament. That's right.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it's gone to, in my opinion, it shows. I think England have underestimated a little bit. I think that the situation that they've got. Well, I know that Joe Root has come out today and said obviously it's down to them not playing a lot of 50-over cricket, which I understand to a certain extent. Because these lads haven't, because the 50 over 40 over tournament in England overlapped with the 100, so the higher the higher profile players played in the 100, and then some of the other county lads played in the 40 over stuff. So I do understand that some of them haven't played 50 over cricket, but I don't think that's nothing new in terms of in England. They went and won the World Cup last time, and there hasn't been a change in this. Well, I suppose it would have been with the 100 and stuff, but do you think that is an issue, that there isn't enough 50 over played in England, specifically just in England? Do you think Joe Root's comments are pretty fair, or do you think it's a slight an excuse, really.
Well, I 100% think that there's been a massive change, actually, Jordan, and Giroud's comments are actually 100% spot on. Like, if you look at the build towards the last 50 over World Cup and how seriously the ECB took it in terms of ensuring that 50 over cricket became a priority, white ball cricket in general became a priority from the ECB standpoint. They played umpteen amount of matches before the World Cup actually started, and everyone sort of knew their roles. They were fit and firing. Just before the World Cup began, they sort of got Jofra Archer to qualify to become available for England. He came in and he played X amount of matches before the World Cup and sort of integrated himself into that team, that environment. I mean, they had an issue with Alex Hales. They sort of settled that quickly, moved on, replaced him with, I think it was a Liam Dawson or James Vince or something. And that was like a really close-knit, tightly built team that Eoin Morgan had over the course of 4 years. Whereas this World Cup, obviously it was an Ashes summer, and obviously that took, I guess, priority over the World Cup preparation. Having said that, there are very few players that do play World Cup cricket, that do play 50 over cricket and play Test cricket. But the amount of cricket that was played in the UK this summer in terms of the 100 and the T20 stuff, the 40 over stuff, the guys didn't have a chance to play as a unit. Lots of 50 over cricket leading into this World Cup. And I mean, I think England may have underestimated that the difference in pitches in the UK as opposed to the difference in pitches in India. Whilst they're both sort of flat batting friendly pitches, they're still subcontinent conditions as opposed to English conditions. And I just think that this English team on a whole isn't as strong, like it isn't as good as an overall unit as the team or that squad that won the World Cup. You've got obviously fresh faces or newer faces, let me say, in terms of coming in that haven't been honed in their roles. And I guess it's sort of horses for courses as well, because I mean, some players that work well in England won't necessarily work well in India. So, there are lots of varying factors that come into play as to why England haven't really gotten off the ground the way they would have liked in this tournament as well.
Yeah, I feel that England, especially I just don't think they've had that X factor with the ball in the way that they've had that, not necessarily control from an economy rate perspective, but a control in terms of managing the game. I think that the way that, in comparison to, you look at the way that England played South Africa, but then how India went and beat New Zealand, there was a partnership in the New Zealand game. They got on top of the leg spinner, put a lot of pressure on him, and then Sharma just made that change. He brought his pace attack back, and the faithful bowlers that he's using time and time again, they break the partnership, and then they really put that pressure back on. In the England game, Josh didn't really have that, or Josh didn't really have that. They didn't have that bowler to sort of break that key partnership and then really apply that sort of pressure. And I think that's maybe the difference that England haven't had in the World Cup in comparison to the last time, is probably the Jofra Archer effect, really, of that sort of X factor, but also that reliance of maybe the Chris Wokes effect, really, with that sort of control throughout the, he also had, I think, Adil Rashid probably had, it's just, I think it's just not come at the right sort of time for England and this World Cup, really, which might be down to a few things. But I think that, I think we're going to touch on it here. And obviously the topic really of today's sort of pod as such is, obviously, I want to talk about leadership, I want to talk about captaincy. How important is that role of a captain in the tournament side of things, as well as the overall impact it has on a team?
For me, it varies. So a captain becomes obviously more important in a team that doesn't have a lot of experience or a lot of experienced players. So if you look at the Australia team that kept winning World Cups, like the 99 to 96, 2003, 2008, that time period where they're always competing
Yeah.
for trophies, then I'd say a captain in that team, whilst it is important, it wouldn't be the be all end all. You know, you can sort of stick any of those guys into that role, and they'd have respect from the peers, and it's just a matter of managing personnel, bowling changes, simple things like that. Whereas you have a team like let's say in Afghanistan right now that are making huge strides and obviously winning a few games. You've got a few superstars, the Rashid Khans, the Mujibs, the Nawis, etc. But then you've got a few junior players that are coming through as well, and you really need someone to inspire and marshal those troops. You know, so I think captaincy is it's important, but it depends on, again, as I said, the team that you have, the level of experience of the players, the oppositions that they're used to playing against, whether it's superior, inferior, and you know where they're at as a group, as opposed to just a captain being so highly praised and he's the greatest captain of all. Like you can have a really great team, and then you just it's really easy.
Yeah. So in terms of obviously the Eoin Morgan situation, do you think he was just the right captain at that right stage, or do you think that he also had, you know, the important role of making that side work in terms of coming together because he had potentially, you know, to balance certain players within that lineup?
Well, I think for him, it sort of worked in the sense that they had, and this is England, they had the right players in the county system, not necessarily within the English team. They had the right players to fit the mold that fits the style of play that he wanted. He wanted a cultural shift, and so he had to have the backing of the ECB to allow him to pick these players and go and play with freedom, and obviously fail, because once you're playing with that level of freedom, guys will fail.
Yeah.
Once they know that we won't be dropped, then that's when you start to get performances and consistency and all of that stuff come into play. And then that's where England went on to sort of break records and, you know, just do unbelievable things, setting scores of 400 in multiple occasions, etc. So I think captaincy in an issue like that was very important, because it was the personnel that became captain, someone that was very strong in the way that they wanted to go about how he went about leading that team, that cultural shift on a whole on in English cricket of, okay, we're not just going to accumulate and just build up and try and get to a respectable total anymore. No, we're going to attack you from ball one to the end of the 50th over, set a massive total, and then our bowlers are going to hunt wickets. You know, we're not just going to try and entertain. Like it's all about wicket taking and entertaining. So, in an instance like that, I think that Eoin Morgan was very instrumental in revolutionizing English cricket.
Yeah, I think you touched on it there in terms of, like, from a man management perspective, backing the players. So I want to go and play this way. I'm going to support you. I'm going to back you. And like I said, it probably gives them that sort of belief from a man management perspective that's like, I've got the captain's support. I can go and express myself in terms of the way of wanting to go about what I want to do, and I've got that support. So I think that's obviously played a big part in England, in England's success. And like you said, they sort of, getting those totals of 400 on a consistent basis. It really did sort of build that momentum going into the tournament in 2019, which maybe they haven't had this time, based around, as you said there, about the Ashes, and obviously just not playing that volume of games they were sort of playing before. So I think there's, it's a culmination of a few things, and I hope they don't sort of, make massive changes. It probably doesn't need massive changes. It's just a case of sort of figuring out a strategy of certain bits and pieces, rather than sort of pulling various bits and stuff like that. But I just wanted to sort of talk about, I mentioned before about Sharma in the India game, and sort of having that, making that sort of change. And I think that is it in those sort of key games sort of there with India where the captaincy really earns sort of that that sort of medal of honor in terms of doing what they're doing from in those key parts of the game when a certain team is on top, or do you think it's down to having the right tools to sort of then the bowler or the batter in the certain situation, they're going, grabbing the ball by the horns? Is that how do you sort of see the captain's role in that situation?
Captain is as good as the tools he has, ultimately.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I, as I've said, I think Rohit Sharma is an amazing captain, but he does have amazing tools at his disposal. You've got wicket takers in Jasprit Bumrah and Kuldeep Yadav that can most times get you some sort of breakthrough and stem the flow of the game. He's also got Jadeja and Siraj that are wicket taking options and economical as well.
Yeah.
So I mean that makes his life a lot easier because just knowing that no matter what the situation is, you've sort of got at least two people that can sort of fill a role for you at any given time is very important. And then you look at the Indian batting lineup. I mean, Rohit Sharma himself has changed the way that he's playing, and has just gone ultra aggressive, which for a guy with the numbers that he has and the stats that he has, I mean, this is the only person in the history of ODI cricket to have multiple double centuries. I mean, he's got 3 double centuries, and this is someone that's now going ultra aggressive. I mean, to be able to make a double century in 50 over cricket, you have to be aggressive. So, I mean, it's just his vision for the game, understanding, okay, I can continue to play like this, or we as a team can continue to play like this and, have relative amounts of success, whether that be personally him just continuing to accumulate stats or the team continuing to get deep into tournaments and, threaten, or we can, as a collective, and putting himself on the line with his performances, go a bit more aggressive to try and win another World Cup for their nation, which is what he has done. And I mean, it's worked beautifully so far for them. So I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like in terms of captaincy, in terms of having the right tools and then leading from the front. Someone like Rohit Sharma has sort of highlighted, I guess, your point.
No, definitely. I totally agree with everything you're saying there, and I know we sort of touched on that as well. I think we touched on it last week about obviously Sharma and stuff, but I just wanted to focus a little bit more from that leadership perspective. We've covered that with the the importance of that. How would you, as a captain yourself, over the years, how would you sort of describe your sort of the way that you captain the game?
I think it's changed over time. Initially, I think I sort of tried to do everything on my own, not really get the rest of the team involved. But I think as I've grown, and I think marriage has helped a lot. I've said this to Emma as well, because obviously, like, to me, marriage is the biggest teacher I've had in life. Like, you have to learn your partner on a daily basis, and then I sort of applied that same principle to cricket, where I sort of learned my teammates, each person individually, what they're like on the field, what they're like off the field, understanding what someone may be going through in their personal lives, whether it is in their relationship at home, whatever the case is, so that you can know, okay, this is the person that I'm going to need during this situation. I'm going to need that person in another situation, and just understanding how best to utilize and communicate with each member of the team. So I think I've become more of an inclusive type leader, sort of a relaxed environment where everyone has the freedom to sort of express themselves and be comfortable, be free without any judgment or prejudice, and just sort of enjoy themselves. Because I mean, the last thing you want to do, cricket is a fun sport when played recreationally, but ultimately this is our jobs, and so there's enough pressure applied in having to know that you're always fighting for your next contract or salary, whatever the case is, and so it's important to sort of take away any other stresses that people, whether it is players or coaches, may have, because coaches can themselves employ pressure on teams when a coach wants the team to perform so that he can or they can look good as a coaching unit, or that they can get another contract, or whatever the case is.
Yes, it's really a really good point that you make in terms of how your captaincy style sort of changed and things. And I can sort of relate to that a lot, because I remember when I was given the role as captain, obviously in the amateur standard that I played at, I think at first in my head I was like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and I remember reading books about leadership, and I probably took it a little bit too serious. I'll be totally honest with you. But and then when you actually get into the role on a daily basis or on a weekend basis, as I was doing, you realise that it's just about. I just became a lot better at listening to people and actually sort of listening to what they were going to, and in terms of a game situation. And I think I learned a lot from sort of a mate of mine who played a lot of cricket, and he was, he'd never really been a captain as such, but he just led by actions more so from a professionalism perspective, and the way he went and did things. He didn't really have any of, he wasn't very particularly outspoken, but the way he carried himself as a professional in an amateur sport as such that I played in, it sort of spoke volumes really to me, that he didn't have to be about like the whole big sort of leader. It was more a case of like do his, actions really. I think it was quite important for me to learn that as well. But as you went through your career, who were the captains that sort of stood out for you, and what sort of bits did you pick out from them that sort of stuck with you now, that you still maybe utilize, as you with your career still now?
I think the two, I would say, better captains I've had, definitely on an international level anyway, would be Sammy and Dwayne Bravo. I think different personalities. I think Darren Sammy is someone that sorts of, tries to motivate players, sort of bring that element of it, where Dwayne Bravo sorts of gives you the ultimate freedom and backing to be yourself and express yourself without fear of being dropped or anything like that, so you sort of take away those two things and you combine them, and you have sort of a good basis or a good core to start from, and then you can add your own little bits and pieces to the pie from there.
Yeah, and you mentioned it before about coaches. Do you think that the impact of leadership of a coach plays a big part as well, in terms of how they sort of manage you to get the most out of you, from maybe you understanding certain bits around your technique, or the way they deliver certain bits? How important has that been with for you in particular at times?
Well, I think a coach is a very interesting thing. I don't think that professional players or international players are going to necessarily be coached too much on the international scene, if that makes sense. Like you've already done that. Like you'd more so be coached by people in the lead up to that. I think in the professional game, coaches are also just to identify little things, or just try and pump some air into the tires and just sort of make a player feel good.
Right.
But players generally have someone that they've worked with in the build up to becoming who they are, that they trust more so than anything, and that person can take a look at them for 5 minutes, having not seen them for a month or 2 years, and know exactly what the issue is and how to rectify whatever issue that player is having. So it depends on what level you're at, and understanding what to expect from different coaches. But I don't think that in the professional game, and especially the way that the professional game is set up now, because you can be a professional cricketer and not be an international cricketer with all these T20 leagues and other stuff going around. And so it's going to be very difficult for someone you're working with, like you're playing for a team for 3 to 5 weeks. What significant, if any, impact can someone really have on you then, when you have a week pre-tournament and then you're into tournament and you're playing matches heavily and hardly practicing, or just doing very light sessions, So It's more so the people that have come up with you.
So this is an interesting point. I want to sort of get your opinion on here. So how hard or how does a coach go about working with a group of players for, say, that 10-week period from a franchise perspective? How does their role sort of look from the outside, really?
That's basically more man management than anything. Obviously,
Right.
just make sure that everyone gets sort of what they need in that period of time to ensure that they feel fully equipped and ready to go and perform during that time period. So it's not anything like, oh, I think you need to change your grip and your stance and all of that sort of stuff. It's more so, have you hit enough balls? Is there anything else I can do to accommodate, like whatever specific drills that you need to do or whatever the case is? But it's not really ever really going to be something hugely technical or OTT that that they've spotted and they've made this life-changing discovery, and then you went on to break Brian Orr's record or something.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to. It's interesting, really, to see how it works. Like I said, mentioned there about man management, I totally understand where you're coming from that short sort of time frame there. From a captaincy perspective, who do you believe as in terms of like, who do you see as being like the real standout captain over the last, from a one-day international perspective, let's say? Who's sort of been the standout captain from the last 20 years that sort of stuck in your mind and thought, you know what, the way they go about what they do and everything like that is something that's caught your eye?
Ooh, the last 20 years. You're going to have MS Dhoni.
Yeah.
He's probably going to be top of the tree. Eoin Morgan's going to fit into that somewhere. Darren Sammy's going to fit into that somewhere as well. These are guys that have won major championships on a global stage. MS Dhoni pretty much has won everything that there is to it, whether it's a Test Championship or ODI, T20, all these various things. I think he's sort of the blueprint for captaincy. Obviously, you can't tell if he's happy or if he's sad. He just keeps a straight face, and I think that's been a good thing for the team, because sometimes you're playing with some captains that are very emotional, wearing their heart on their sleeve, and like if something's going wrong, then it's really going wrong, because then that person gets emotional, starts screaming or shouting, and then other players starts getting frustrated with the captain because like, why are you shouting? Or let's just be calm. Whereas MS Dhoni, even with the bat, takes it deep, doesn't ever look flustered, always backs himself to get a big over somewhere along the line. In the field, always backs his bowler to sort of pull off a win somewhere along the line, and we've seen that. I mean, the various styles of leadership, there's no one size fits all. There's no right and wrong. It's most of what's right for a particular group or a particular team at that particular time. And that's why you sort of have like captaincy changes or coaching changes, regime changes after a certain period of time, because like as players evolve through the different stages of their careers, they need different things. And while you may have a captain that did a great job in getting a team up to a level, there may be someone else in that team that has been identified to take them to the next step. And it's just understanding when is the right time to sort of move things along.
Yeah, I think the one key thing I picked up from listening to you for the past half hour or so is, from a captaincy perspective, is the successful captains have always trusted the group of players, whether that be from a way that they support them and back them in terms of the way they go out and play, the way they go and open the batting, if that's what you're doing as a role, to break that partnership, to do whatever the role. It's the trust aspect that they've been given, that I believe you can go and do X, I believe you can go and do Y. And I think that having that captain who believes in you to go and do that is so important. It makes you feel 10 feet tall at times to go and achieve what he set you to go and do. And I think it's a big thing, trust to be able to go and trust your players. I think that's a big thing I picked up on there in different ways. You've talked about it in sort of in different aspects, the cool, calm and collective approach, I think ultimately the key word to pick up from that is trust. And I think that Yeah, I think it's been really good to speak to you about captaincy and leadership and how you went about it as a captain yourself and certain traits that specific people had. And I think it's been, really, really nice to speak to you about that, really.
I mean, think of life on a whole. When we're kids, we sort of get that belief from our parents, and that's what propels us. If you're a religious person, you sort of have that belief from your faith that whoever you pray to will take you through. You're in a relationship, whether you're married or not, your partner sort of gives you that confidence to take you through whatever situation. The strongest man always has an even stronger woman or partner behind him. I can say that right now. Emma's running away, flexing her muscles, and I don't mean it literally, but but no, it's that's just the basics of life. Anything that any way that there's success, it's because someone has instilled that belief in you that you can go out and sort of have that fear of failure taken away from you, because even if you fail, you have another opportunity to go and do it again, and that person will be backing you and supporting you. And as a team, once you get that from your leader, from your organization, then collectively you have everyone playing freely towards one cause. They're going to fight like hell for that captain, because that captain has given them the ultimate freedom, and so they're going to run through walls for him. If he says that we can do it, let's go and do it.
Yeah. No, I think it's been real. I've really, really enjoyed listening to you tonight. I really have. It's been so insightful from my perspective as somebody who, has a short stint as playing amateur cricket as captain to then obviously the highest standard of yourself. I think that there's some similarities, but there's also the element of the more important role that you played as from a professionalism aspect. So it's been really, really, really good to listen to you tonight. I just wanted to finish a little bit about the World Cup. So we've spoken a lot about India. I think that we're in a situation at the minute where they are ultimately going to take some beating. Can you see anyone who's going to sort of maybe pip them to it?
At the moment, they're looking good. It's going to be interesting. I want to see an India-South Africa match at the moment, because South Africa are flying pretty high at the moment. I think that whilst India are playing really good cricket, South Africa are playing extremely fearless cricket and putting up mammoth scores. And I mean, we know what scoreboard pressure does to the best of us. And South Africa are capable of getting to 400.
Yeah.
It seems at will at the moment. Their entire batting lineup, which is pretty crazy to say, but it's their entire batting lineup that's clicking at the moment. It's not just one or two people doing it, which makes it an even scarier task. And this is even without their actual designated captain playing, who averages over 50 in one-day international cricket as well. And then you've got bowling attack led by Kagisa Rabada, who for me is probably the second best seam bowler in the world. You're going to be a pretty tough day against them. So that's match that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, who do you have as the number one bowler then? If you said Rabada's two.
I think Pat Cummins is the best quick in the world. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think they're going to take some beats. I think that I'm looking forward to seeing that game when India play South Africa. I'm also intrigued to see India meet. I do think India will meet New Zealand again in one of the knockout stages. And I think that I'm interested to see how that goes, to see how New Zealand will adapt tactically against them, having played them and obviously being beat by them. I still think they've got something to give. I think they've got some nice balance in that side. So I'm intrigued to see how it goes. It's just disappointing from my side to see obviously England, whimper out. Really, it's a bit disappointing. But there's been some fantastic performance in the World Cup. It's been fantastic to see. Like you mentioned earlier about Afghanistan winning. Beating Pakistan was brilliant. It just goes to show that these and I don't want to say lesser nations because it's not very fair to say that, but these are they're challenging now, and it's going to become the 10 is going to be people are going to be beating each other now, and that's what we want to see in these World Cups and things. So it's good.
Yep, very good. I think the likes of Netherlands, for example, beating South Africa has opened the eyes of a lot of people. The likes of, obviously, today, that was yesterday, I think, Afghanistan beating Pakistan. Afghanistan having won a few games, cricket is in a really good space at the moment, and this is, without obviously West Indies, Ireland, Zimbabwe, all these other teams taking part in this World Cup as well. So I think that cricket on a whole is in a really good space at the moment, and we're going to have lots of exciting, because they're world events, I think, every year for the next few years. So we're going to have a lot of interesting talking points over the next few years.
No, definitely. So so thank you very much for tonight. As always, so insightful, and I thank you so much for your time. And I hope you all, your listeners and people who are watching on YouTube, have all enjoyed it, and we'll speak to you all soon. Thank you.